Welcome to the O Brother Podcast. I'm your host, Stan Smith. Alongside me, as always, my brother from the same mother, Mr. Anderson.
So if I'm Neo, that makes you Mr. Smith.
Yeah,
which you are anyways.
I didn't have like a white, and I couldn't quite get the dark green suit. It looked more like a bad Men in Black impression, I think, here. For those that are listening and not watching, you'll have to check it out on YouTube. But I don't know, what date is it that we're getting this episode? It's could it possibly be New Year's Eve? Is that possible? I suppose it is.
I think so.
Yeah. So we are coming to you with the long-awaited review of Matrix Resurrection.
How long awaited it was, but
well, for us it was. Well, this is a sequel that's been talked about for a long time. Yeah, it's a big movie.
We're coming off Spider Thing.
The
Spider guy.
Spider-Man, yeah, that was our last episode.
Over $1 billion. Over $1 billion.
How can you find our previous episodes, by the way? Oh, that's right. For those of you that are not currently following us, make sure that you do. And the easiest way to find all things O Brothers, to go out to our official website, which is OHB as in brother, podcast.com. That's ohbpodcast.com. And you can subscribe.
Feel free to go to YouTube directly, so you can subscribe, and that way
you can subscribe from the website.
I know, but you can put the little bell on, and every time
you can do that from the web. Folks,
I don't know.
Folks, like, it's inevitable, and I didn't even say that to be funny because of the Matrix, but it's inevitable you interrupt me constantly when I'm trying to get a bit out, and then it just goes south. We used to have this kind of shorthand where
what was the bit?
If you just let me go with it, and it wasn't so much this case, it was a bit. It's like there's one portal to the world of O Brother, and that is ohbpodcast.com.
Correct. But I'm just trying to drum up a few more subscriptions.
And it's getting a little sad at this point, right? It's like the Matrix is trying to drum up a few more people to go see this film. It's a struggle equally, quite frankly.
Do you have the numbers on the Matrix?
It hasn't even made 70 million.
Mm-hmm.
It grossly underperformed the opening weekend based on projections. And I have to think, because I have to think the HBO Max streaming is a big part of that in this case. Yeah. I think it would be hard to deny that, because at least the anticipation of this film would get asses in seats. No question about it.
Yeah. And I think there was a lot of competition this week. Spider-Man still raging. Plus True. you've got the pandemic that's raging again. I mean, look at I watched the Celtics 2 nights ago, and I didn't know half the team.
Right.
And now hockey, you're allowed to bring like 6 more guys onto your team.
Yeah, I really don't think that's got anything to do with it. I think it's mostly, trust me, because I've been to the theater. I saw Spider-Man, and there's plenty of people at the theater. So I think it's more. I think it's the streaming. It's the streaming in this case.
Yeah, no, I agree.
And isn't this the last one that they're doing?
Yes, for HBO. So
that's
probably going to hurt HBO.
Mm-hmm.
But the theaters, it's going to be interesting to see what happens. But see, if you give me a choice, every time I'm going HBO,
right,
or streaming,
right.
Every time.
So I need to start charging your ass more, or else I'm not going to make up my box office earnings.
You mean HBO is going to?
In other words, if everybody has that attitude,
right,
which is the way things are trending.
Right.
The movies are going to continue to take a hit. We're never going to get back to where we were with the movies. I mean, I think that's that would be shocking. So I went back and watched every single Matrix movie.
You did like the Matrix,
every single one,
deep dive.
Yes, and
I last night watched the original. So I've seen the original and I watched the new one first.
Right. You watched it out of sequence.
I should have watched.
Right.
Yeah.
So I don't know that we make an attempt to summarize or provide any sort of synopsis. Maybe just in terms of where this one fits, that's up to you. More just kind of wanted to get into it and break down what your take is on it, because it seems to be so far pretty divisive.
Yeah.
Not only among the fan base, but critics and the audience. And although if you look at Rotten Tomatoes, it's pretty even between the critics and the audience.
What do you got for
In fact, the critics are higher. It's about 65, 66%. And then the audience is like 63 or something.
Again, it should be Ripe Bananas, because any Rotten Tomatoes a bad Rotten. So if you got 10 Rotten Tomatoes.
Yeah, but see, that's because
you're still a Rotten Tomato.
Now, you said this last time, but that's because you don't understand the tomato meter. You got to go and review and read how it works. In other words, if a movie's fresh or rotten, that's a whole scale.
Yeah, but it's called Rotten Tomatoes, and there's 10 rotten. Yeah. Ripe Bananas, folks. Go to ripebananas.com.
Yeah. Okay.
I probably sold that website to somebody. Somebody's going to come up with Ripe Bananas.
Possible. It's possible.
Clint Eastwood slipped on a banana.
All right. So you saw the original, you saw Resurrections. I've seen all of them now in the last couple of days.
Yeah.
So what do you think about this Matrix Resurrections?
Jump in, because I want to hear it from you first, because you did such a deep dive.
Putting it on me for.
Well, you did such a deep dive.
Okay. All right. So I'm going to start with, first of all, let me say that I was never a big Matrix fan. Like, I never really was a huge Matrix fan. I like the original. I didn't love it. I wasn't like obsessed with it, but I liked it. And, I'm a Keanu Reeves fan. I wasn't always. I mean, honestly, he kind of brought me back into the fold with John Wick. The Bill and Ted's but Devil's Advocate. There's some of his work over the years that I've liked.
His early work I didn't like. He was always the stoner dude. Once he dropped that persona, like River's Edge, once he dropped that River's Edge, Keanu Reeves, and started doing more serious stuff, like you just said, Devil's Advocate. I like, I like him almost in anything. I'd probably watch Bill and Ted.
Yeah. No. You didn't? I thought you've seen all those.
I don't think I've ever seen all of them. No.
Hey, real quick, I just realized we didn't even, I made no comment about this upgrade to your studio. So for those of you that are listening and not watching, this is a perfect reason to check this out.
Those of you who are watching and not listening. Bing.
Okay. First of all,
you just said, for those of you listening, not watching.
Because you once again interrupted me and didn't let me finish my point, which was to say, for those, no, there's, in fact, bing. Watch this. When you watch this back, you're going to see Emily's going to put something really funny about how you're a dipshit and I'm not, because what I was trying to say was, for those of you listening and not watching, you're going to have to go out to, I said, in fact, I was going to say, this is a reason to subscribe to our YouTube channel so you can see what we're talking about. But no, you couldn't help yourself. You had to step in and interrupt
me there.
Emily, just for the hell of it, put like 3 or 4 mishap marks up there. None.
Put an excuse meter.
There's no excuses. There's no excuses. And anybody that goes back and closely analyzes this,
just because you can think quickly, just because you can think quickly,
at the end of the day, the end of the day, I know that we'll both end this meeting. You'll go, yeah, it was good because we had that good bit where you got on my case, and it's
not a bit. I'm really.
No, I know it's not a bit, but it turns out to be entertaining, even though it's aggravating as hell for both of us.
Well,
and me especially, because once again, I'm right. 0 mishaps, and Mike it's not true.
It's like 3-0. Right,
all right, wait till we get to the pronunciation of some of the actors' names in the Matrix, and we'll see how you do. Okay, Emily, stand by. All right. So, anyways, we're coming in your studio. You've got these sweet movie posters up behind you now, and this is kind of interesting because we did talk about this before we got on air.
Which was not cheap either.
Well, and the fact that you've gone to all this trouble. And you have none of your top 5 movies represented there. In fact, you have one of my top 5 movies represented.
I know.
In the Empire Strikes
Back. And the reason
Back.
is I wanted, my first choice was The Godfather. That was my first choice. But I went to the local comic book hip poster store, and they were out of like, well, they had plenty of comic
What a
books,
description. The hip comic book, whatever you said.
What else would you call it? I mean, that's what it is.
I just went to the store. How's that?
Then it was a specific store, the hip
Way
store,
too much exposition
where all the
there.
young hip kids like myself go.
All right, how do we?
But anyways, it was Christmas Eve at the mall, and all I wanted was to get 3 posters, and I went and I said, where's the posters? I think I accidentally dialed you at that point, so you could hear me talking to the guy. And I said, where are the posters at? I know this place used to sell posters. And he said, oh, yeah, come on. And he takes me to this crevice. It was like a little closet,
right beside the beta tapes.
Yeah. And I was going like this through the.
Sir, could I interest you in any laser discs while you're here?
Yeah. And they do sell vinyl. So he was like, the vinyl's up front, like I'm a total stooge.
Right.
But, so he takes me to the posters. I'm like, oh, if I get one, I'll be lucky.
Yeah.
And the first thing that came up was the Star Wars trilogy. And I thought, well, that's good, but I don't want all 3. So I picked the one that I think, I also think out of the first 3, Empire is probably the best.
Yeah.
So I got Empire first, and then I'm flipping to a lot of empty spaces, and I come up with Back to the Future, and I love how that's solid.
25 minutes of the Matrix Resurrection episode is going to be about Mike's
about
poster purchase.
Yeah, well, you asked.
Riveting,
so
folks. I didn't ask you to go into this much detail.
But I wanted the Godfather so bad, and I said to the guy, do you have the Godfather by any chance? Maybe out back or something. And like we were already out back, and I'm like, you got
the crevice.
Is it like under the steps or something? And he was like, no, but I can take any of the ones out of the sleeve, and I can, which that took. I was in the mall for an hour just because of that, because he had to take it out, roll it up, get it nice and
stop with the sound effects. Michael Winslow. Stop with the sound effects.
I worked with him a long time ago, and put a rubber band on the thing, so it was nice and circular.
How about we roll this up?
Then I had to buy the frames, right? And I had to go to another store, the hip frame store. I think they call it Michael's.
Do tell.
Which is a pretty hip name, Michael's. So I went to Michael's and I bought the last 3. There was actually a 4th one that was like a mess. So I got the last 3 poster things, and there's one cashier. This is Christmas Eve, right? And we'll get to the Matrix. People, this is riveting.
All right,
stuff.
I went on a rant in the Spider-Man episode, so it's only right that you have a rant.
So it's Christmas Eve, right? It's Christmas Eve. People are shopping. A lot of people are shopping. One cashier at Michael's, 800 customers.
Wow.
So that was another hour. So it was 2 hours, one to get the poster, one to get the frames. And then, took me another hour to like open them and put them up. And
well, you did a good job though. Symmetrically, it looks
so I got
sweet.
the Avengers. I didn't give out the last one if nobody's watching,
Avengers.
but it's the Avengers, Infinity War. So So those are the 3. I will change them though eventually.
Yeah,
I will. Marlon Brando will be on that wall.
I'm sure by the end of next season they'll get switched up. So, all right. So
once the dust,
right, the cobwebs and whatnot. But it's anything would have been an improvement over that '80s diamond-shaped clock that you had on the wall there.
Yeah, that was pretty
good
bad.
Grief, that was bad. Okay, so back to the Matrix. I don't even know where we were and talking about it, but
you were going to do a synopsis because, or I don't maybe skip the synopsis and dive right in.
Yeah, exactly. And so you wanted to get my take on it, I think. First. Now, and I was
because you watched all 3.
I watched all 4.
All 4. Yeah.
And as I was saying previously, I was never a huge Matrix fan, kind of a casual viewer. Now, going back and watching all of them, the first one is still pretty solid. It's enjoyable. The second and third movies, Reloaded and Revolutions, are two of the worst films ever made.
Terrible.
Absolute trash. Like the sequel should have been Matrix Hedonism, is what they should have called it. It was so weird and bizarre. And then between that and the third one, Revolutions, they went way too deep into the sci-fi fantasy piece of it.
Yeah, they were trying.
And then like he's Superman all of a sudden and can fly, and he's even doing the Superman like flight thing. And that it was way over the top at that point, you know. And
they were trying to be like super intellectual, like,
right,
look at how smart we are. I bet you can't figure out all of the things we're doing. I'm the architect. No, you're just some weird looking dude.
Yeah, very convoluted. And I would argue that pretty much all of the films are, you know, maybe the original is the lesser of the four.
Yeah.
But now, okay, so we move into the fourth one now, which almost didn't get finished. You know, they started filming it again. This production started in February 2020. So the pandemic comes in and puts it, you know, to a grinding halt. And then Lana Wachowski says, I'm just not going to finish it. Just not going to finish it. And I guess
really?
I guess the cast, yes, she was going to shelve it.
I didn't know that.
Yeah, and the cast apparently pleaded with her to finish it, which was interesting. So
it
almost didn't get finished.
What happened to the other Wachowski?
I don't know where they separated. I'm not really sure what the story is there.
I'm so curious. Is that a fight?
I don't know.
Is that a sibling thing that they just didn't see eye to eye?
I'm sure you can look it up, and there's
I'm dying to know.
However factual the stories are that are out there, I don't know. But so it almost didn't get made. So in watching it, I'll immediately dive in and say that I enjoyed it. It's not a great film, but for me, it was a satisfying sequel given the second and third movies. I think if you took the original Matrix and Resurrections and just put those out as the Matrix anthology, whatever, that would be satisfying enough for me. You know, given, again, if you think about the second and third, I thought it was a clever way. And, you know, I know Spider-Man, we did a lot of spoiler alerts, so I don't know how much we want to do that with the Matrix, but the storyline that they came up with, I thought was kind of clever, that we find him now as supposedly this game designer, this pretty, you know, well-accomplished game designer who, you know, and you find out through that storyline that the Matrix was really just a video game series. Mm-hmm. Right. So I'll kind of stop there and let you interject.
Okay. So same as you, as far as the trilogy, the first one, okay. Although when I watched it again, I haven't watched it in a long time.
Yeah, me too.
There was so many things I'm like, geez, I don't remember that. I must have been sleeping through that. Or there was a lot of things. There was a lot of connections between the first and the last, the new one.
Which is like, one of the things that people
didn't like.
Yeah,
they literally, it was shot for shot.
That opening.
Yeah, and they would show, the opening with a fake Trinity. It wasn't really Trinity. It looked like her.
Yeah,
but it was the same kind of sequence.
I thought that was super cool.
And the the cops are like, hey, they're bringing the girl down right now. No, your officers are dead. You know, the same lines.
Oh, it's exactly the
same thing. Now, so like you, the second two, I hate. Mm-hmm. I don't think I'll watch them. I don't think I'll waste my time.
You remembered them enough though to
no.
Oh, well, see,
I probably should to remember, to see how they fit in.
They're worse than you think.
They probably are.
Yeah.
And even the first one, towards the end of it, it just got too much. And I will say the exact same thing for this sequel. I liked the beginning. I liked the way the story, it was different. Yeah. It was a story. It was, okay, he's a comic book guy and we're meeting new characters. And then all of a sudden, the characters turned out to be the old characters. And I don't know why. I don't know why his boss is Mr. Smith now, and he looks different. And why is Morpheus 10 years old when Neo and Trinity aged, but Morpheus is a kid? I just didn't get it.
But you're talking about, Morpheus from, see, now there's a storyline, right? Because everybody like Lawrence Fishburne, even I was like, where's Lawrence Fishburne? Like, why isn't he in this?
I think even he was like, why am I not in this?
Well, the story, the rumor at least, is that and again, I'm not like, I don't know the Matrix world this deeply, but there's a video game, Matrix Online, that apparently Morpheus dies in that game. And so because
and
this is picking up,
like
it wouldn't make sense that he's in it. It wouldn't make sense that he's in it. But then again, Trinity dies at the end of Revolution.
Correct.
She's in it.
Correct.
But she's Tiffany, not Trinity.
And I know they have the Animatrix too, which is like an animated thing.
Right.
And that was all part of this whole, like I have a 10 over here. I have a 10 box set. And after the third disc, I was done. I'm not going into this Animatrix, and I'm done.
Yeah.
Your little mind game or whatever you're trying to put me through isn't working. I'm not impressed by
that. Seems
how clever you are.
The story seems to be what most people were criticizing, that it was shallow, and that the fact that they just basically went back and regurgitated the old characters. But what did you expect them to do? I mean, it was we're about 60 years beyond the third film. And how are you going now, the second and third movies, you have to have seen them recently to know they're so bad. This to me was about the only way you could tell a story to pick up after the third and make it make any sort of sense. And none of it makes sense. Let's just be honest. None of this makes sense.
Right. So this is technically 60 years since the first Matrix.
Since the last Matrix, since Revolutions.
So why are they aged? But
don't ask me. Don't ask me.
You don't. So
I have no idea.
Okay, so there's no explanation.
I'm not going to go read all of the scientific material to break that down.
And the fact, and I take it, since you've watched the 3 movies,
right?
I figured you might have more insight into it, because who else? There were other characters like.
Okay, here's
the
one.
The guy who was in 8-Bit Christmas.
Neil Patrick Harris, who I thought is a good bad guy.
Right, and he was a good character, but he was who from the first movie?
Nobody. He's nobody. He's a new character called the Analyst.
Oh, that's right.
Because again, we're dealing with a new Matrix.
I know.
This is a new Matrix. We're not back in that old world.
But his boss was Mr. Anderson.
No, he's just a version of him. How many Smiths were there in the sequels? There was tons of Smiths, because they could inhabit different beings. Like
they were
to
agents.
Think there was one Mr. Smith. There is no one Mr. Smith, right?
Yeah, but that was explained,
I think
at least.
This is where I think people go wrong. You're getting too bogged down in like you want it to make sense and be linear. And I just enjoyed it for what it was. And I thought it was a clever way. There were a few parts where, for example, the storyline with Trinity and Neo reuniting, and she's a completely different person in this reality that he's in,
and she has kids.
Yes, she has kids, and I think most fans of that character probably didn't want to see her as a non-action domestic engineer, quite frankly, I mean, there wasn't a lot of Trinity ass kicking, right? There's like a little bit at the very end. And then the first bit, like you said, is not even her. It's just somebody else, because they recreated that opening scene from the original.
Right.
But I liked that. And in fact, Carrie-Anne Moss, I heard or read an interview where she was talking about, wanting to inhabit the character as she would see her today, evolved, grown, matured in a different way, whatever, she's not necessarily, still an ass kicking, leather wearing, action star. You know what
Yeah,
I mean?
and neither is Neo, because he
No.
can't fly anymore.
And now, granted, he got more of the kung fu. You know, it was still a little bit of that with Keanu. She didn't really get as much screen time with that as he did.
Right.
So they definitely, I think, put more emphasis on his character in this one. You know, I would have liked to see more Trinity early on.
Yeah,
but
although
it was, but Tiffany, I liked
kicking
it.
some ass. It's at some point
she did, and at the end, you know, she gets a little couple whacks in.
Yeah, because she's the biker and she's driving the bike,
right?
And, you know, taking down people.
She works on motorcycles. I mean, you know,
why at the end? And
Mike's still searching for answers.
Well, we've already spoiled enough of it, so I, you know, might as well keep going. At the end, when Neo can't fly, why is it all of a sudden she can fly? Is she the one now?
No.
Was that a mistake in the original Matrix that she is now the one?
No, she wasn't flying. I think, weren't they pulled up by a
no, it's her.
I'd have to go back and watch it. I don't think that's true.
It was
I don't
her.
think that's true. I don't
No,
think that's right.
They were falling, and then she grabs him.
No, because she says he looks. I hope I'm not confusing one of the other ones, but I swear he doesn't. He look at her and say, "Is that you? That's not me doing that."
Yes,
that's because it wasn't her, and it wasn't him. It was something else that was pulling them. I can't remember what it was. People are screaming at us right now because they're like, they just saw it and they remember better than we do. But I don't think it was because she could fly and he couldn't. I don't think.
But it didn't make any sense.
See, there was one of the things that I thought was kind of, it was goofy, but it was kind of funny that he makes the gesture to try to fly. And he's like, yeah, that's not happening. Right. I don't know. I thought it was funny. I thought it was funny. I thought it was funny that they sort of poked fun at themselves a little bit. Sue me. And look, I got into the most intense discussion about this the other night.
With
like
who?
Super intense with my girlfriend. Because she is a huge Matrix fan. And she's a really big Trinity fan. She went as her for Halloween one year. And you know how deep she goes into the costuming.
Right.
And she was so upset by this movie. And
she hated it.
Yeah. And when she found out that my take wasn't the exact same, and I felt how she did about this, as she felt about Spider-Man. Spider-Man.
Yeah, she likes Spider-Man.
She really likes Spider-Man. So it got really intense. And I genuinely felt bad because I thought, after I saw it, I thought, oh, I can't wait to see what she thinks. I kind of thought she was going to like it. She hated it.
And what was the reason she hated it?
I think she's on the side with the storyline was weak. It was shallow. It was the Trinity, the way they used Trinity was she was so underutilized. It was just, and then she mentioned, now here's something I don't necessarily disagree with, which is Jada Pinkett Smith is in this,
right?
Reprising her role as
I
Niobe.
Wasn't sure it was her either.
Okay.
The makeup is so heavy.
Okay.
I wasn't sure.
And that was one of the things that she had a problem with. She said that makeup was like a 3-year-old did it. Like it was, I didn't think it was that bad a job. In fact, I don't know. Cause I'm like, is it Jada Pinkett Smith?
I had to wait to the credits.
Well, I knew
to know.
There's a point where she takes off her robe or whatever she's wearing, like jacket or something. Yeah. And she's got such a petite frame that I just, at that point, I'm like, I knew it was her. But that character, well, here's a quick side note. Will Smith turned down The Matrix
way back when.
Yeah. So and he ended up doing like the Wild Wild West as a result. Yeah. Sure he doesn't regret that decision at all. And then interesting that his wife would end up in the Matrix series,
That was with Mel Gibson and Jodie Foster, right?
Yes, I believe so.
And they all had other offers. I think Mel turned down like The Fugitive. They all turned down another much bigger, better movie for that piece of junk that flopped. But this, I thought they were making like, why was Jada Pinkett Smith 300 years old and Neo was like 20?
Because she's back in whatever. Because she's back in that version of the Matrix. So Bugs is talking to Morpheus.
And she's the girl with the blue hair.
With the blue hair, right? Which I thought she was kind of an interesting character.
Yeah, but
in my opinion,
but
Morpheus was a little silly. Just he did look like a pimp a few times with the outfits, and it was just a little goofy. It didn't really work for me. I would have rather seen them work in Lawrence Fishburne in some way. And I think, and they could have done it. They totally could have done it.
Of course they could have done it.
They could have done anything they wanted to. But see, when they dive back into that sci-fi fantasy piece of it, that's where I just check out. Which is why I liked this new storyline, because it was a little bit more. We talk a lot about, we joke about this grounding in reality with these movies, right? But I liked that the human world, or whatever it was, whatever world that is that he's in as a game designer, I found that much more interesting.
I did too. I liked the beginning. I thought, okay, this is different.
It could have been more like a John Wick type of thing if you just kept the action in that world.
Right.
You don't need to go back to where those weird octopus machines and
them kissing the big
It makes no sense.
It was stupid.
It was stupid.
It got stupid. I mean,
there was a little robot at one point that looked like a mechanical Groot that like high-fived the guy at one point.
Exactly.
That was stupid.
Exactly. That was really
so.
dumb.
It's not without its flaws for sure.
Many flaws.
Again, when you have a series of films where the second and third are such horrible movies, I just felt like this was a satisfying way to revisit it, in my opinion. And I guess I'm sort of, again, out on an island with this one. But
yeah, I think Lana made the right call.
Thinking of shelving it. Yeah. Maybe she had an instinct about it, perhaps.
And that's what I forget. She was Larry, right? She used to be Larry.
So. Yeah, I think so.
And then what was the other guy's girl's name?
I don't David. I don't remember.
I'm
not sure.
But it was so weird because they were both so into this. I remember them doing press for the three of them, and they were like, this is this, and explaining every little detail and nuance. And you would have to be a freak to really follow every little nuance. And you'd have to watch the Animatrix and play the video game all the way through. And how many people are going to invest that kind of time when the payoff just? Ugh.
And look, there's a subplot here, or, there's a story underlying the story about mental health. I don't think you can really skirt that. I mean, that's a reality. I'm not sure how much that's going to get talked about, but it is.
No.
It is.
I know, but
it is there. It's absolutely there.
It's there,
big time.
Obviously, because there's
big time.
Him going for counseling sessions.
And I almost think if they could have run with that, but see, this was probably a losing battle. This is one of those scenarios where there's no way you're going to make a film that's going to satisfy that hardcore fan base from the original. Can we think about off the cuff any instance where that's been the case, where it's been, years later and they've revisited it and they've like knocked it out of the park? I don't know that we've had a satisfying look with us in The Godfather 3. We get all kinds of grief with that.
Right. Well, I mean, for some people, Star Wars. Other people are just like the original three, nothing else.
And Godfather 3, look, I like it more and more every time I see it.
Yeah.
Right. And that's been the case over the years. And maybe that'll be the case with this. If people that hate it now, maybe, I don't know.
I don't think
they might not give it another chance.
Because The Godfather 3 was grounded in reality. And we got to see characters, in the 70s, 20 years later, who were 20 years older, all the characters, and they brought back every extra they could find from the original so they could throw as many characters in but they all had truly aged and were playing their current age.
Right.
This is sci-fi and craziness, and it just didn't work.
It was, again, it started off where it's like, okay, maybe this is going to be, really solid.
Right. I liked that they didn't know each other and that they shook each other's hands, and it was like,
If they could have done this without going back to the original Matrix, I think it would have been
like
more
once the
interesting.
bugs came in, I was like, oh, do I have to watch the rest?
Once
of this?
the mechanical bugs,
yeah, and
so look,
I read one critic's line said, if Spider-Man was the something, this is the reward. Meaning if Spider-Man's the really bad movie this year, this is the really good one. Well, no, they're both really bad.
Well,
they're
I don't see.
Terrible.
I don't think Matrix Resurrections is a terrible movie. I think
so.
Within context, I think it's a decent film. I would not say go out and lay down your money to see it in the theater. Watch it on HBO Max if you have it. If you don't, wait until you can get your hands on it and watch it for free.
Watch it, and then once it goes off the rails, it's not coming back. That's what I would say to people. Once it goes off the rails, don't expect it to come back.
See, I liked Neil Patrick Harris's character of the analyst and the whole thing with bullet time again and the way they brought that back in. I thought it was all right.
The other thing was
that's not a great endorsement. Yeah.
You know,
it was all right. It's okay.
Why I know. Why were some of his abilities, like his abilities to just go like this and block, thousands of bullets at once, that's back.
See, you want it to make sense. That's your problem.
I guess
it's never going to make sense. It's never going to make sense.
But I think at the beginning they had a story that started out to make sense. It's like, oh, this is interesting.
They really did.
What if it was just a video game?
Exactly.
And now he's back in reality.
Stay
there.
And
go that.
But see, they would have had to probably followed the mental health storyline to make that work, and nobody would have liked that. They want the action they want, which is funny because some of the critics, that's one of the problems they have with it. They revisit so many of the old characters in just a different way. And well, what do you expect them to do? That's the cash cow.
Yeah, but it was so stupid the way they did it. Like,
so would you, what would you have thought if all of a sudden we saw, Neo and Trinity back in the long, coats and the glasses?
Well, he was wearing a long coat for parts.
But you know what I mean? I'm literally talking like the stereotype, like from the original, that look. Or from the first three, quite frankly.
No.
Would you have bought into that?
No.
So that's what I mean. Like, I think they did a decent job with keeping it. I think
they were on track. I think they started on track. And then somebody said, oh, yeah, it's a Matrix movie. Let's
I don't know. I don't, it's not terrible. It's definitely not terrible. I don't think that's fair. But,
when I'm looking at Spider-Man and Matrix back to back, I'm looking at two bad movies.
Now, okay. Anything else to say about the Matrix Resurrection? I think it's pretty clear what.
Yeah, Spider-Man's terrible, by the way.
Okay, now which film do you like better, Spider-Man or Matrix Resurrection?
If you clamped me to a chair like a Clockwork
you
Orange,
had to decide. Yes,
I'd probably watch Spider-Man.
Yeah, I almost feel like. Maybe do I need to go back and watch that again? Was it better than I thought it was?
What?
Spider-Man?
No.
Okay.
It's horrible.
So, hey, listen, I saw a couple of films this weekend that I'd never seen before. You'll appreciate.
Films?
Yeah, you'll appreciate one of them, Elf, because I was ridiculed constantly every time I say I haven't seen Elf. Yeah. And of course, that's Jon Favreau. You got the Avengers up behind you, so a little Iron Man.
And
Will
Bob
Ferrell.
Newhart.
Bob Newhart is just fantastic in it. Yeah. Zooey Deschanel. It's a good cast, and it's just such a well done film. It's just so much fun, and it's a great story. And James Caan is perfect to put in that type of role.
Yeah,
as the corporate dad, deadbeat dad or whatever that doesn't even know his son's around or alive. Anyways, that one, and then I saw one of the Potter prequels, Fantastic Beasts and Where You Can Find Them.
Oh, okay.
Eddie Redmayne.
But you haven't gone through the Potter series yet.
About 3 or 4 of them, I think. It's
okay. That doesn't really ruin anything.
Thoroughly enjoyable. What a great movie. So well done. That was the
first.
Yes.
Okay.
And I got to see the next one with
right.
Johnny Depp is now kind of prominent in the second one. I haven't seen that.
Right. And then
The Crimes of Grindelwald. Yeah, I got to see
Right.
that.
And he gets fired from the next one.
Yeah. So I took in a couple of extra movies. I just thought I'd mention it because it's,
Yeah, I
well,
did
Fantastic
too.
Beasts, I was aware of it. It never pulled me in for some reason, but I'm really glad that I watched it. And then Elf, I've been wanting to see that for a long time. So that was fun. In the right time of year, of course. Anything else on Matrix or any others?
Now I'm just so disappointed that we got to the end of the year.
Yeah.
Two of the biggest films of the year that
didn't
I
really
was
pay
kind of
off.
anticipating.
Didn't
Neither
pay
one
off.
paid off.
No.
So, after seeing the Spider-Man and the plot holes and I don't know if I'm that excited about Doctor Strange now, which is the next Marvel one.
So
are they going to get back on track? Are they off the track now?
I don't think they're that far off the track now. No. Now, as you just mentioned, we're down the end of the year here, and we've done almost 100 episodes. Not quite there yet, but we're close. Yeah. Can you think just over this past season, is there anything that sticks out to you as a favorite film that we've reviewed? I mean, there's so many.
I wish I could look at the list.
Yeah, there's so many. Eternals, No Time to Die, Finch, Dune, Halloween Kills, Venom, Many Saints, Malignant. We even did. There's just on and on. Now, the first one, let's see if I can go back to. So we kicked it off with Cruella.
I think Disney had a horrible year.
Yeah.
I think overall Disney made a lot of bad films and a lot of regurgitation.
Yeah.
And wasted a lot of my time this year.
Mm-hmm.
That's my biggest surprise, I think, of the year. I can't think of one Disney / Marvel. I think the best film they made maybe was Black Widow. And to call that the best,
right?
Yikes. What does that say for what's coming?
Get Back was, but again, it's documentary, So
Get Back
kind of stands on its own, but that was great. Right. This is a more recent episode that we did. And a couple of quick notes I want to make. We interviewed Michelle Lang this year, and that was an incredible interview. And
was she our only interview this year?
I think she was this year. Yeah, I believe so. Yeah. So we interviewed Michelle. She was, like I said, fantastic. Go back and watch that interview if you haven't seen it, because she's just fascinating to talk to. And I also wanted to give a quick shout out to Andrea Benham, who does all of our YouTube artwork. She's a little under the weather. I just wanted to give her a shout out and say we hope that you are feeling better soon.
Better.
Yeah. And of course, thanks as always to Emily Villadero, our production assistant. And we appreciate everything that she's done for us. Yeah, it should be like 14-0.
Three
mishaps. Yeah.
No, I'd say about 6 to
Mike
1.
keeping it alive and well. No, there isn't one on my end. Not one.
No.
Not one. It's totally clean.
The lies.
Totally clean. The lies.
The rewriting history.
But we're pretty fortunate. I mean, there's a lot of films, but you're right. There's nothing that really. I mean, Black Widow wouldn't be the one. Pig, maybe with Nicolas Cage. That was a pretty good movie.
Yeah.
But it was sort of weak.
Yeah, nothing stands out that I want to run back and see the next one.
No.
Or want to watch it again.
Bond was okay, but for the wait.
Yeah,
it was just such a long
wait.
They
put
to
us
get
through
that film.
A year and a half.
Yeah.
And then there was something that was really terrible, but it jumped out of my head when you started to ask me.
Mm-hmm.
There was a movie that was in there, and I was like, I can't believe how bad this was.
Yeah.
And maybe next show, because we have one more show this year.
We may. Yeah, we'll see how things time out. So we're going to try to get another one in.
And I want to look down the list.
But that's it for our movie reviews, and then we'll have just a little bit of a break, and then we'll be kicking off again in January and
probably
right back at it.
Scream, right? Scream.
Maybe
might
Scream.
Be the next
maybe
one.
Scream. Yeah. I don't think I'm going to go back and watch the 4 Screams. I don't think that's happening.
No, I don't think so.
But all right, well, hey, there you have it. Matrix Resurrections. That's our breakdown of that film, and I guess we'll just leave it at that.
We're kind of split on it.
We're split on it.
I would say we're split on this one. You find it somewhat redeeming, enough to say check it out.
Check it out. Yeah.
I say don't waste your time.
Yeah.
There's a good half hour maybe.
Right.
But that's about it.
Well, hope everyone is having a good holiday season. It's been
has a good new year.
Has a good new year, yeah. And we'll be coming right back at you with some more episodes, and hopefully we'll get a better lineup in 2022.
Yeah, we'll get
much worse.
Better studio down south.
I'm trust me, I'm working hard.
Yeah.
Let's hope it's coming soon.
Yeah. Okay.
All right. Well, that's going to do it for this episode of the O Brother Podcast. I've been your host, Dan Smith. Alongside me, as always, my brother from the same mother, Mike Smith. And we will see you next time.